You ever notice how every suburban American neighborhood has that one woman who walks around like she's the first lady of charity? Perfect hair, perfect smile, always bragging about how she's helping the less fortunate. Yeah, that was my wife. She was the Mother Teresa of cul-de-sac America, or at least that's the mask she wore. Every weekend she'd grab her tote bag, toss in a couple granola bars for show, and announce, "I'm heading to volunteer at the shelter, honey." And there I was, nodding like the proud husband, thinking, wow, I really hit the jackpot. A woman so selfless, so giving, so committed to the community. The neighbors adored her. They'd see her leave in yoga pants and call her an angel. Little did anyone know the angel had horns hiding under that halo, and her so-called volunteering was actually the kind of public service you don't put on a resume. At first, I was blind. I believed every word. I even bragged about it at barbecues. My wife? She spends Saturdays helping the poor. What does yours do? I said it with that smug husband pride, beer in hand, grilling burgers. The other dads would nod, impressed, like she was the gold standard of suburban wives. But here's the joke. The only poor soul she was helping was a police officer with a shiny badge and apparently way too much free time. She wasn't stacking canned goods at the food drive. She was stacking lies, and the whole neighborhood was buying it. Now, maybe I should have seen the signs earlier. The outfits, for one. Nobody needs full makeup and perfume that smells like a Macy's beauty counter just to ladle soup. And she never had dirt under her nails, not once. I thought volunteering meant you got at least a little messy, maybe some stains from carrying boxes. But she'd come home spotless, glowing, and suspiciously energized. Like who comes back from community service looking like they just left a spa? Only someone practicing the art of infidelity while wearing the disguise of civic duty. But you know how betrayal works. It doesn't just knock politely on your door. It seeps in like a conspiracy theory, little clues dropping everywhere until suddenly you feel like you're in your own low-budget detective show. I started connecting dots. A random motel receipt in her purse? Oh, I must have picked that up from the street while volunteering. Sure, a missed call from a number labeled Officer Dan? He's just coordinating the toy drive. Right, my personal favorite was when she came home late, hair messy, blouse half-buttoned, and swore she had been teaching underprivileged kids how to bake cookies. I'm sorry, but unless those kids are running an underground bakery inside Motel 6, that story doesn't fly. And here's where the paranoia turned into comedy. I started tailing her like some bargain bin private investigator. Picture me, middle-aged dad, in a Honda Civic, wearing sunglasses at night, whispering into my phone recorder like I was on an FBI stakeout. It felt absurd, but also addictive. Every lie she told fueled my obsession. And when I finally followed her one Saturday, my suspicions turned into the kind of nightmare that almost feels scripted. She wasn't walking into a soup kitchen. No, she was walking into a police cruiser parked behind a diner, laughing like she was auditioning for a bad sitcom. And then he stepped out, the officer, badge shining, uniform stretched across his chest, like he was posing for a recruitment poster. They kissed like high schoolers behind the bleachers, right there in broad daylight. That was the moment the words, cheating wife, stopped being just a fear in my head and became the headline of my life. A headline in bold yellow letters, tabloid style, local man's wife pretends to volunteer, hooks up with cop instead. It was betrayal on so many levels: marriage, family, trust, even community pride. And the worst part? Everyone thought she was some modern-day saint while I was the clueless husband clapping from the sidelines. I felt like the main character in a conspiracy documentary. You know the ones, grainy photos, ominous music, the narrator saying, and that's when he realized the truth. His entire marriage was a lie. But anger has a funny way of sharpening into revenge. As I sat there in my Civic, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, a thought sparked in my head. This wasn't just cheating. This was performance art. This was toxic love, staged like a Broadway play, and I had front row tickets. If she wanted to pretend, then fine, I'd let her star in her little show. But when the curtain dropped, I'd be the one writing the ending. And trust me, justice was coming, whether she expected it or not. You ever try to act normal when you know your entire marriage is basically a crime scene? That was me the next morning. My cheating wife came strutting into the kitchen, hair tied back like a wholesome volunteer, pouring herself coffee in a mug that literally said, "World's Best Wife." I wanted to laugh out loud. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Yesterday was exhausting, but so fulfilling." Yeah, fulfilling all right, fulfilling Officer Dan's Saturday shift in the back seat of his cruiser. I bit my tongue so hard, I thought I'd need stitches. Because here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just sting, it makes the whole world feel like a parody of itself. Every word she spoke sounded like it belonged in a bad sitcom laugh track. But I wasn't just some clueless sitcom husband anymore. I was officially on a mission. If this was going to be a soap opera, then I was flipping the script. I started digging deeper. I checked her volunteer schedules, which looked like they were typed up by a drunk raccoon. No addresses, no phone numbers, just vague phrases like helping the children. Helping the children. More like helping the officer out of his uniform. The more I looked, the more the conspiracy widened. Gas receipts that didn't match her story. Texts with Officer Dan saved under the contact name Community Outreach. And the real kicker? I found a receipt for a motel minibar. Tell me what kind of charity needs vodka minis and Toblerone. Unless they're holding fundraisers in a Motel 8, the math ain't mathing. I started imagining the secret society of suburban cheaters, a network where housewives and cops conspired to run an underground operation of infidelity disguised as charity, like some Illuminati of toxic love. In my head, it wasn't just my wife, it was half the neighborhood. That lady who says she's volunteering at church? Yeah, right. Probably running off with the UPS guy. The guy who's working late? He's probably organizing bingo night with somebody else's wife. Once you've been betrayed, you see it everywhere, like a virus. Infidelity becomes the lens through which you see the world. And yet, as ridiculous as it sounds, the humiliation was real. Family dinners became a theater of lies. My wife bragged to my mom about her work at the shelter. My mom beamed, saying she's such a blessing to this family. Blessing? More like a curse dressed up in Lululemon. Every compliment felt like a dagger in my back. And the worst part? I couldn't say a word because I wasn't ready. Revenge isn't something you rush. Revenge is like barbecue. You gotta slow cook it until it's tender, so I collected evidence like a man obsessed. Photos, receipts, recordings. I even downloaded one of those spy apps just to catch her texts. Do you know what it's like reading "Can't wait to see you, baby" from a contact labeled as Community Outreach? It's like reading the script of a terrible reality TV show where you're the punchline. And yet it was also comedy gold. I swear, if Netflix wanted a new hit series, they could have just followed my life. The Cheating Wife Chronicles, Justice in Suburbia. But paranoia has a way of twisting your brain. One night I dreamed the cop wasn't just her lover, he was part of some government program, infiltrating families through toxic love. Like an FBI experiment to test the limits of betrayal. I woke up sweating, convinced I was living inside a conspiracy thriller. Maybe I was. Maybe the whole marriage had been staged from the beginning, and I was just the unlucky husband cast in the role of gullible fool. Still, behind all the satire and jokes, there was real pain. Family is supposed to mean something. A marriage isn't just two people. It's trust, loyalty, the glue that holds everything together. And infidelity doesn't just break hearts, it detonates families like a grenade. When I pictured my kids, my parents, my neighbors, all of them thinking my wife was a saint, I wanted to scream. They didn't see the cheating wife behind the curtain. They didn't see the betrayal rotting underneath the charity speeches, but soon they would. Because here's the thing about justice in America. We love a spectacle. From courtroom dramas to political scandals, we eat it up. And I was ready to give them a front row seat. No more silent suffering. No more fake smiles. My wife thought she was starring in her own soap opera, but I was about to hijack the script. When the final act came, she'd learned that toxic love always burns out. Infidelity never stays hidden, and revenge, sweet, calculated revenge, has its own sense of humor. So I sat at the dinner table, watching her laugh about her busy weekend, nodding like the dutiful husband. She thought she was in control. But in my head, I could already hear the announcer's voice. Stay tuned for next week's episode, when the cheating wife's lies crash down around her and justice comes in ways no one expected. And trust me, I was going to make sure the ratings were sky high. The thing about living with a cheating wife is that your house starts to feel like a stage set. Every room becomes a scene, every dinner a performance. And you're the unwilling extra who knows the script is fake. She'd come home with her fake volunteer glow, set her tote bag down like it was a sacred offering, and describe in suspicious detail how she served chili to the homeless or helped teach kids to read. I swear she even rehearsed these lines in the mirror because she delivered them smoother than a politician on campaign night. Meanwhile, I sat there chewing my food, hearing laugh tracks in my head like it was an episode of some twisted sitcom called My Cheating Wife and Her Badge-Wearing Boyfriend. But here's where things went from sitcom to conspiracy thriller. I wasn't the only one noticing cracks. My neighbor, Frank, you know the kind, retired, drinks beer on his porch all day, knows everybody's business, pulled me aside one afternoon. He squinted, lowered his voice, and said, "You ever notice how your wife's volunteering lines up perfectly with Officer Dan's shifts? Kind of funny, huh?" That was it. That was the proof I needed. Even the peanut gallery could see the betrayal. And when Frank the porch philosopher connects the dots, you know the dots are big enough to be seen from space. So I doubled down on my investigation. Picture me at night, sitting in the garage, a corkboard in front of me, red string connecting photos, receipts, motel stubs. I looked like a conspiracy nut who thought Bigfoot was real, except my monster was a cheating wife with a talent for lying. Every time she smiled at me, I imagined a courtroom jury gasping as the evidence was revealed. The paranoia wasn't just paranoia anymore, it was a survival instinct. Family was on the line, my dignity was on the line, and I wasn't about to let her toxic love story ruin the rest of my life without some fireworks. The breaking point came one Sunday dinner. We had family over, my mom, my sister, even a couple of cousins. The house was warm with laughter, kids running around, mashed potatoes on the table, the classic American family vibe. And right in the middle of it, my wife launched into another performance about her charity work. She described handing out blankets to veterans, her eyes shining with crocodile tears. My mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin and said, "You married a saint." A saint? I almost choked on my cornbread. A saint who spends more time at Motel 6 than in church. The rage boiled inside me so hot I almost stood up and screamed, "She's lying! She's not helping veterans! She's helping a cop unzip his pants!" But I didn't. Not yet. Revenge needs timing, and I was biding mine. Still, that night after everyone left, I confronted her, not with yelling, but with silence. I asked casually, "So how was the volunteering really?" She gave me that perfect, innocent smile, the kind that could win an Oscar, and launched into her pre-rehearsed speech. But I didn't break. I just looked at her long enough that the silence became uncomfortable. And for a moment, just a flicker, I saw it. The crack. Her eyes darted, her hand trembled, and for the first time she looked like she realized the act was slipping. That was all I needed. Infidelity can hide behind smiles, but betrayal always leaks through the cracks. The next day, I got bold. I drove to the police station under the guise of asking about community programs. And there he was, Officer Dan, my wife's co-star in this soap opera, standing tall, handing out parking tickets like he was saving the world. Seeing him in uniform made me want to laugh and vomit at the same time. Here was a man sworn to protect families, and yet he was destroying mine. The irony was almost poetic. But the real twist? I learned he wasn't just some bachelor cop. No, Officer Dan had a wife of his own. A wife and 2 kids. That's when the story transformed from betrayal into conspiracy-level infidelity. 2 families, 2 households, 4 kids, and 1 cheating wife tangled in the middle of it all. I reached out to his wife anonymously at first, slipping evidence into her mailbox like some suburban whistleblower. Photos, times, dates. She called me 2 days later, her voice shaking with anger. I knew something was off. Thank you. It was like we were co-conspirators in the same mission. 2 betrayed spouses united by toxic love and bad luck. We were no longer victims. We were prosecutors preparing for trial. And here's the beauty of revenge. Once you have an ally, the plan practically writes itself. We decided to let the lies pile up until the moment was perfect. No messy shouting matches, no private arguments. Oh no, we were going for the big stage. If my cheating wife and her officer wanted to turn life into a show, then we'd sell tickets. The exposure wouldn't happen in a quiet living room, it would happen in public, where betrayal gets the humiliation it deserves. So I sat across from her that week, watching her laugh, watching her text, community outreach under the table, and all I could think was, you have no idea what's coming. She thought she was playing me, thought I was the fool in this toxic circus. But the thing about fools, sometimes they're just biding time, waiting for the perfect punchline. And trust me, this punchline was going to bring the house down. You know that moment in every conspiracy documentary where the narrator says, and then the truth came out? Yeah, that was my life now. Weeks of watching, waiting, collecting evidence like a suburban Sherlock Holmes had led to this. The grand finale. My cheating wife thought she was untouchable, a goddess of charity and deception. Officer Dan thought his badge made him bulletproof. But betrayal doesn't stay buried forever. And revenge? Revenge loves an audience. The perfect stage came in the form of a charity gala. Oh, the irony! My wife had signed us up for it, naturally, because what better way to show off her volunteer work than to strut around in a cocktail dress, sipping Chardonnay, pretending she was saving the world. The whole town was there, neighbors, church friends, even city officials. And guess who showed up in uniform, polished and smiling like a campaign ad? Officer Dan. My blood boiled, but I smiled. Because what they didn't know was that I'd hijacked the program. The slideshow was supposed to feature volunteers handing out blankets, kids smiling, soup kitchens bustling. Instead, I swapped in my little collection. First slide, her laughing in a diner booth with Officer Dan. Murmurs. Second slide, the 2 of them walking into a motel, his badge glinting under the neon sign. Gasps. Third slide, their texts, blown up for the whole room to read. Can't wait to see you, baby. The audience went silent, jaws dropping in slow motion like it was a Hollywood disaster movie. And then the shouting started. Officer Dan's wife, my new ally, stood up and screamed, "You bastard!" right as she threw her wine across the table. It hit him square in the chest, dripping down his badge like melted dignity. My wife covered her face, muttering excuses, but the damage was done. Every eye in that room turned on her. The saint of charity had been exposed as the queen of infidelity. The mask was shattered, and the whole town was there to see it. Now, in America, justice doesn't always come in the form of handcuffs. Sometimes it comes in humiliation, in the collapse of reputation, in the public unraveling of lies. Within days, Officer Dan was under investigation. Internal Affairs doesn't play nice when cops get caught in toxic love scandals. His career crumbled like stale cornbread. And my wife? The neighbors who once praised her stopped waving. Church friends whispered behind her back. Even the PTA booted her off the volunteer list. You know you've hit rock bottom when the PTA turns its back. At home, the silence was deafening. No more stories about soup kitchens, no more fake schedules, just awkward, bitter silence. She tried once, just once, to defend herself. "It wasn't what it looked like," she whispered. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off my chair. It looked like infidelity. It looked like betrayal. It looked exactly like a cheating wife caught in her own play. And that was it, the final curtain drop. Divorce papers followed. She tried to beg, tried to spin it into some tragic love story, but toxic love only sells tickets when there's an ending. And this ending was non-negotiable. The family deserved better. I deserved better. She thought she could rewrite the script, but she underestimated the power of revenge. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to throw things. I just let her world implode under the weight of her own lies. The funny part? Justice really did come anyway. Not because I fought, not because I yelled, but because truth always burns through the fog. She played her role. She fooled the crowd. But in America, where reputations are currency, one scandal is enough to bankrupt you. She lost her standing, her community, her carefully constructed halo. And I walked away clean, free, and strangely satisfied. Some nights I replay it all in my head, like reruns of a dark comedy. My life turned into a parody, a conspiracy, a soap opera where betrayal wore a badge and toxic love hid behind charity work. But in the end, the cheating wife didn't win. Infidelity didn't win. Revenge didn't just win, it got a standing ovation. And if you ask me what I learned, simple: never trust a tote bag.